if this persists another, 3, 6, 9 months?
We just need to keep looking ahead and getting that. Don't look at where we are, look at where we're going, which is something I learned from racing. If you're looking ahead in the car, you're probably going to crash or not go very fast. You got to look through the corner, see what's on the other side, see what's around the bend, and aim for that target and not what's right ahead of you.
All right, welcome back to Relocation Leader. I'm Zach Turbis. I'm here with Alex Talbot, the president of Interconnex, and Alex is here with us. Would you give a brief description or bio of yourself?
Sure, thanks for having me. Really excited to have the opportunity here to do this and be a part of this. But with Interconnex going on 20 years this year, as you mentioned, I'm the president, recently president as of last week. And but really, despite the title, I'm really here to work for everyone that's working right now, making the moves happen and making NEI look good and all our other clients look good and making our transferees happy. I've been doing this for almost 35 years, which is really hard to say out loud, but it was supposed to be a 3-month summer gig, and here I am. So one day I'll get to my real job, but for now, this summer job continues.
So getting into the current situation in the Red Sea, could you just kind of lay out what should we know? How did we get here? Kind of what's the history been in that area, and what's the outlook look like?
So right around the holidays, right toward the end of the last year, the Houthis started attacking cargo vessels that were transiting the Red Sea, and thought it was a one-off thing, and it just became an ongoing thing, and it's still ongoing today. They just attacked another ship yesterday, I believe, with their missiles, and so the U.S. and U.K. have been launching counterattacks. Probably as we speak, it's happening, and it's not going away quickly. I think people thought it was going to be a little blip on the radar, but they have some pretty good funding. They have some cheap but effective weapons. We're using $2 million missiles to take out $20,000 drones. So there's nothing on the horizon right now that's showing that there's going to be an end to this. And the impact is as I put out on my newsletters, the longer this goes on, the bigger their impact, because it has a chain reaction around the globe, onto global shipping, and will eventually impact not just what we do with relocation, but even inflation, which is probably why the Fed has kind of quieted down on the rate cuts that they were talking about just a month ago.
So if this isn't going to end anytime soon, in your industry, kind of what are people doing for workarounds? Is it just changing routes, or is there other solutions being talked about?
It's been the shipping lines who move these containers for us. They've been obviously they've had a routing changes especially for the Asia EU lanes. 30% of the world's cargo goes through the Suez Canal, which is at the top of the Red Sea. And now that lane is closed, we're having going around South Africa, which adds about 4 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks of transit time for a container, for a ship going around, going from Asia to, let's say, Rotterdam. And so they're looking at other routings. You could also go the other way, but there's also an issue with the Panama Canal, where the water levels are really low, so they've had to cut capacity back 30 to 40%. So there's really two issues now in play. The Red Sea is obviously the bigger issue, but as of like this week, we're hearing, depending on who you ask in the shipping industry, rates are anywhere between 131 and 173% up globally. The bigger impact again is felt between Asia and Europe, but even the West Coast rates now are up 2 times what they were just a month ago. We're not up to the pandemic type of pricing we had, but it is a record high. Pre-COVID, there was nothing. These are the highest rates we've seen.
Is some of that volume moving to like air freight, or could you speak of maybe how some companies are managing, um, you know, their cost situation?
We have not. This is still a little fresh. Again, we thought it was going to be a blip on the radar, so I haven't seen any corporate clients make any changes with their policy. I think if this really does continue another 30, 60 days, they're probably going to switch to giving larger air allowances, doing more storage. Like if you're going on an assignment, 3-year assignment, either sell your things or the things you really are precious to you, just keep them in storage at your home base. We'll give you a larger air shipment allowance, provide longer term furniture rental. So those are some of the things we saw in the pandemic and during the pandemic, and also some of those policies that started during the shipping crisis, which was triggered by the pandemic. Some of those policies stayed with us, so we're seeing on average smaller shipments, and they were always going down, but the pandemic really fueled a further decrease in average shipping size. And as far as the shipping lines themselves, they are trying more round options. But if you're looking like from the Far East to the EU, you have the whole Ukraine situation. So it's not smooth sailing from across land either. There's a driver shortage, which started with the crisis in Ukraine, because a lot of the truck drivers in the EU and parts of in that region were Ukrainian or Eastern European, which are all have been involved in the conflict now for I guess 2 years now, right? So there's a lot of friction for us globally when it comes to shipping, a lot of different moving pieces. The last thing on the Panama Canal, they have started a rail service. It's called the Panama Rail, cleverly named, to move some containers across that body of land. But again, if you think about it, you have to unload all the ships, get them onto the rail. So it's going to add time and of course cost.
Gotcha. So I'm curious, just trying to understand where all the levers are. What are the different things that can affect the duration? And it sounds like there's more issues than just one. I imagine with the Panama Canal, they're probably coming into their wet season, so maybe that one could clear up soon. But sort of with some of these other issues, kind of how do you see them playing out in the long term, and what can affect how long these struggles, or how long we have to maintain these challenging situations?
Really, I think the Red Sea situation is the biggest one, and it's going to have the biggest impact. And again, the longer it goes, the bigger the impact. Hopefully, um, it ends in the next, in the next few weeks or months, but we just don't know. So again, the longer it goes on, the bigger the impact, because what happens is it affects the positioning of the ships. The ships, just like airlines route their planes, they have this itinerary that's set out weeks or months in advance, especially with the ships. Or so maybe it was supposed to go from the Far East to the EU and then on to the US, or North America or South America. Um, and so now these ships are not where they thought they were going to be in time. They're going to be 4 and 5 weeks late. So the challenge is really setting expectations with the transferees. Trying to, we finally at the end of 2023 started getting back to more normalized transit times for the transferees, and now our global move specialists are really struggling with. Well, this was taking 6 to 8 weeks, but now it can take 8 to 15 to 16 weeks. So that's what I think the corporate clients really need to be aware of, and for each of these lanes, we're trying to set these expectations up, but maybe they should be asking, make, if they have a pending relocation, and before they initiate the services, maybe get an idea of how long, what the current transit times are, so they can have better information to make a better decision.
Nice. Um, so as far as like escalations with the Houthis, um, I know that Great Britain and or the UK and the US are getting involved. Are there any other countries that are offering their help?
I'm sure there are, but I haven't, hasn't been on the headlines. Some of that stuff we have to
Yeah.
dig a little deeper. But I mean, at first, earlier this week, it was just the US, and then I think or maybe last week, but now they're mentioning the UK is involved as well. But
How is this impacting the shipping industry? Like, um, from a cost standpoint, is this, you know, is this something that's manageable? Obviously, not long term, but kind of how is the shipping industry reacting to this?
you know, when the pandemic shipping crisis happened, in late 19 and early 20, when shipping rates went through the roof because of the challenges with COVID impacting the ports and the port strikes and all these different things. You know, our clients paid, 5 to 10 times higher freight costs. And you did for going shopping for your kids at the store. We all felt that inflation. We all felt that pain driven by the supply chain issue of shipping. But if you watch the news in 2020, 2021, 2022, the shipping lines had record-breaking profits every quarter. So that they were the industry, and you read the news, their headlines. They were feeling the pain of these reduced pricing because it became a competitive marketplace again. So honestly, this is probably great for the shipping lines because now they don't have to be as competitive. They can, any cost to them, they pass on right away. There's for our industry and most, we use what's called spot lane pricing, spot pricing. So it's based on a real time quote. And the whole household goods industry is not shipping enough at one time where we're taking up a whole ship. If you look at like a major company, the big, think of the top five big retailers, they could use a whole ship for some of their goods. In fact, some companies like Home Depot and I think Target during the peak of the shipping crisis triggered by COVID, um, they started getting their own vessels because they were tired of being hostage to the shipping lines and in terms of transit time and in terms of price. So they started chartering their own vessels to move their goods from the um, far east to the west coast of North America. So they're the shipping lines don't have we NEI and Interconnex we live for our surveys that we get from our transferees and from our clients and that feedback, and we're very service driven, own it. The shipping lines don't own it. There's the customer service levels are the exact opposite of what NEI and Interconnex try to put out there day in and day out. Um, Again, we're a captive audience, unless you go to so what happened during the pandemic is there was a switch to air freight, but then air freight got really costly and the airlines couldn't even deal with the capacity. They started switching passenger aircraft to freight aircraft, literally taking out seats and just strapping them cargo. And some airlines even strap the cargo into seats. If you Google that look for some images, you'll find them. But they just couldn't create the cargo space enough, cargo capacity quick enough. And of course, last year that they reversed that as passenger uh, travel resumed and air cargo dropped. They started switching back to passenger. Now they're going to be going the other way again if this continues to go on. It's to me it's a fascinating to see all these moving pieces. And we haven't even talked about you know some of the weather issues too that are caused. There's been some crazy weather out in the open seas, and so they're trying to get better about navigating the oceans. And then obviously, we've seen here in the States and in other parts of the world some severe flooding and severe storms. Most of North America got hit by some pretty severe storms the past couple of weeks. So some of those ports get closed down. So that creates an impact because the vessels can't come into the port and they can't leave the port. No work happens at the port. Last week you had freezing for them, not for us up here in the Midwest, but for them, some freezing weather in Houston, and that caused some delays at the ports and the terminals down there. So again, a lot of moving pieces involved here.
Yeah. Sounds like, creating the clear lines of communication and expectations seem to be the way to go. Is there any other strategies that like mobility managers should be thinking about if this persists another, 3, 6, 9 months?
We just need to keep looking ahead and getting that, you know, don't look at where we are, look at where we're going, which is something I learned from racing. If you're looking ahead in the car, you're probably going to crash or not go right there. So you got to look through the corner, see what's on the other side, see what's around the bend, and aim for that target and not what's right ahead of you. If you're, and that's how our clients need to operate as well. They need to get ahead of these assignments. We see sometimes these last minute rush moves, and trying to avoid that as much as possible now is really essential if they're looking to protect their company spend and make sure that their relocating transferees have a better experience. It just can't stress that enough. It's not just about the cost estimate, but you got to look at the whole picture. And again, this is a very fluid situation. So keep track of the headlines. The news. Stay tied into this if you're in this space. And look ahead. And then yes, you have to. If it gets to be out of hand and really, if it's going to take 12 or 14 weeks to get the person's their goods, is it really worth moving all of it, right? And of course, I don't like saying that because it impacts the amount of work that we do, but that is a reality. You really got to look at the big picture here. Um, and then again, decide and it's more challenging with permanent transfers, which has been a big increase over the past 3 to 5 years. 5 years ago, there was a lot of 3-year assignments, and now they've kind of brought those down to more one-way moves. So, having storage left in the origin country is not as big as it used to be, but that might be something to start considering again. If people don't want to get rid of certain things, and a lot
Yeah.
of companies, a lot of clients got rid of their firm storage allowances, but they may want to start looking at that, in terms of bringing that back in on a reduced level. I don't recommend storing everyone's household goods like their entire house in our warehouses here because typically they're gone for 9 years and they don't want 80% of it back. So,
Yeah.
that's a reason. So now would be a good time to review your policy. That's for sure.
Nice. So I was looking through your LinkedIn profile, and it sounds like that president of Interconnex is not all you do. I hear you're a race car driver.
I've been racing. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for racing, I think, because when I was in my early 20s and I was in the moving business, I worked for a moving and storage company for a big agency. And I was into cars and I was into racing and I was, not making a lot of money. And I just wanted to make more money so I could buy more racing parts and pay more entry fees. So I really created this hunger to learn more about the business. So I would punch out of my job, still, time clock days, and I'd sit with the dispatchers for 3 hours, 4 hours, and just help them finish their day up. And so I could learn more about the industry. And so, finally they realized, like, why are you sitting here for free? And, so they started training me officially to move up through the ranks. And that's really for the first 5 to 6 years. That's my motivation to be, if I'm honest, was just to get more funding for racing. And that's, I believe, why I'm here today. Unfortunately, thankfully, a lot of success has come from that, which I'm very grateful for. But I don't get to race as much anymore between Interconnex and I have 5 children. I maybe get out once or twice a year now.
Yeah. What do you like to
Yeah,
drive?
anything that I can get my hands on.
Anything?
Get my hands on.
you know,
I've raced Miatas to Corvettes, and I've been on 25 racetracks on 4 continents. So I think now at this point, I'm getting older. The young people are pretty fast, have a little better reflexes than I do. So right now I'm into more experiences, experiencing new tracks that I've never experienced before, and different cars too. Different types of layouts, and just like I said, anything I get my hands on, and a new track experience is always ideal.
nice. And the fastest you've ever driven is
190
wow,
or 185. Sorry.
185. Yeah, I think I've gotten up to like maybe 100 or so, but yeah, I can't even imagine what that would feel like.
It's very calming, if I'm honest. My peaceful place.
Really.
Yeah, yeah, you don't
Yeah.
have time to think about your kids. You don't have time to think about electronics or great clients like any. You just got to focus on beating the guy behind you, staying ahead of him. If there's someone in front of me, I guess trying to catch them and get past them and staying alive. Those are the things you're really focused on.
So on Relocation Leader, we like to not just give updates or a greater view of relocation and the business aspects of kind of what we do with relocation, but we want to sort of prepare professionals for advancement within their career. And so I think it's really cool. We want to congratulate you on your new promotion to president of Interconnex. I was wondering if you could kind of give you know maybe a synopsis of your career path as far as like some of the traits and skills that you've relied on to get where you're at, and if you could just kind of explain, to our audience, maybe it's just some helpful tips on kind of what they can do to think about their own career, and especially in relocation.
I think just to be curious and to be hungry about other things. I started in the movie business and I was there for 6 years. And in the mid 90s, the relocation companies were really starting to come up. And quite honestly, they were making my life a bit tough because I was working, we had so much volume due to these relocation companies that I was working, 13, 14 hours a day every day. And I'm like, what is this? And so I actually left the moving industry and went to work for a relocation company for a couple of years and to learn about the other aspects of mobility. Ended up coming back to the moving space, and although we do domestic, the focus more on international. But just to be curious, there's webinars like this or podcasts like this. There's webinars, there's classes through Worldwide ERC. Just it's free content, and you may find something that sparks an interest in yourself to give you the hunger to learn more about it and dive into it. Just be curious, and then be helpful. I think yes, the president's hard to believe for me from where I started that I'm here, but myself and the retired president, my former partner, Chris Meyer, for the past 18 years, we've run Interconnex together, and we work for them. We work for the team, and not the other way around. Like our role is to give them the tools they need to be successful. So I think helping. I can go back to when I was helping dispatch when I was a kid. Just offer to help other people, and not just. And if you don't want to do it just to be a good person, do it for selfish reasons, like I was, just to learn more, so I can figure out what's the best path, what relates to me, what do I enjoy, and the more diversified you are. I mean, I could 40 feet over there's a forklift, and I am the forklift driver here. So, being able to do anything and everything really gives you adds value to your resume, obviously. And I have pretty much done just about everything you could do in the moving and storage industry. And even again, sometime with the RMC, I earned my CRP, I think in 1996, certified relocation professional designation, and I have my GMS. And there's a marketing aspect to those, but really the education you get from those certifications is invaluable. And really, if you're in, working on title or mortgage or household goods or immigration, to learn about all these other aspects. And that's what I don't go to the local conferences much anymore, but I do try to have the team go so they can just get exposure to what our corporate clients are worried about. They're not just worried about household goods. We're such a small sliver of what's going on in the transferees world and on your account executives table. Right? So even though it seems like a big deal to us, it's just one small piece. And it also helps us, have some sympathy or empathy for the transferees. I've had a coordinator come to me a long time ago saying that his transfer won't stop crying. I'm like, what is she crying about? The kids' DVDs went into the sea ship and not the air ship. And I'm like, I'll take the call, but I promise you that's not what she's crying. It's about all the other pressures. And so just getting that understanding, like that macro view is really essential.
Nice. I'm curious. You kind of reminded me of just like with the stories. Do you have any stories of kind of crises, shipping crisis or something like that in the past that you guys have overcome? And do you want to share a little bit about how you guys have been resilient in the past and what you did?
I think, I'm not trying to, this isn't a placed question or a placed response, but, the own it philosophy, we we are very much the same way. That is our culture. Things happen. You give us enough moves. I do a lot of best and final presentations with our clients and year interviews, and I always tell our people, like, look, give us enough moves. I promise you we're going to break something, and I promise you we're going to upset one of your transferees. But we're going to own it. We're going to let you know before anyone else. The biggest failure we can ever have is having a client blindsided by something we did. If your client or any of yourselves hear about it from someone other than us, there's not a big fail. I don't get a pretty level, even keel, but that is something that I become irrationally upset about because it's just communication is what we control 100%. So as long as everyone has embraces that, like, hey, I made a mistake, and here's just owning it as soon as possible really helps you clean things up a lot quicker. And you just be very transparent, put your cards on the table with all the key players involved, whether it be the transferee, whether it be our client, whether it be our partner. And hey, we messed up. Can we work together to solve this? And whatever it is, it is. Maybe it costs us, more than 5 or 10 moves worth of revenue, but so what? We're in this for the long haul. Interconnex has been around since 1969. We've had partners for decades. We've had employees for decades and partners for decades. And it's a marriage, right? And so you got to be just like at home, or you got to be open and transparent and just take your ego out of it, and listen. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of I think you're looking for a crazy shipping story. I think there's many, but one of my favorites is we had a shipment that was going from Australia to Alaska, and it was on a major carrier. Like, think of 3 carriers as one of the 3 you just thought of, and it got stuck. It got lost somewhere between San Francisco and Alaska, and so we're pressuring the airline, trying to get answers, and they don't know what happened to it. And these are 2 big containers, larger, like very, very large air shipments for a high level energy client transferee. And so I jokingly sent an email, hey, I'm going to be going to the Bay Area next week for work for a conference. So if you want, I'll stop by the airport, the cargo of this airline, and ask for it. And I landed SFO. I grabbed my rental car, and I had to wait for my sales guy. And I went to the cargo desk at SFO. I said, hey, can you help me find this shipment? And first of all, it took me like 10 minutes to get someone. Finally, this woman, and never forget, she was wearing like a hoodie and some jeans. I wasn't even sure she worked there. I'm like, hey, can you help me with this? She was like, oh, let me check. And she left me. She was gone. I almost left because she had not come back. But I just waited, and she came back just as I was about to go. And she's like, yeah, they're here. Like, what do you mean they're here? She's like, they're out there. Like, what? I was so blown away by that. Turns out that they were the flight was initially covered by Boeing 757, this route, and they had switched the service to using a 737. Well, the pieces we had fit through the doors of a 757, but would not fit in the door of a 737. So every night for this flight, they tried to load it on the 737, and it wouldn't fit. And it just round and round and round for 3 weeks, back and forth. And
Wow.
I mean, this is dumb luck. I would love to say it's Interconnex skill or greatness, but no, it's just. And so sometimes, and I say this in racing, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. And just and that culture was a lesson too. Like, you just can't accept the answers you get all the time. We tell the team all the time, question everything, even if it's me telling you something. I've been doing this for 35 years. Guess what? I'm still making mistakes. I'm still learning every day. So if you think I'm saying something that doesn't make sense, question me. And if for some reason don't want to do that, then have someone question someone else about me. But just question everything, because if something's not right, and we build on that, that's the foundation. Everything will fall down eventually. So we got to find those cracks. We got to, be better smoke detectors. Find the smoke before the fire, because who wants to put out fires all day? That's not fun.
Nice. So I'm curious then, before we let you go,
Mhm.
could you give me a handful of questions that, mobility managers should be asking themselves about the path ahead?
What is the end game for the people they're moving? How long is that assignment going to be? What's really, again, looking as far ahead as possible. What's really important to that transferee? Is it a single person who doesn't have a lot of single person who's not married to a lot of things, or even married? What are the needs, and what are the personal needs of that transferee, and what are the business needs? for the, why are we doing this relocation? What is the purpose of it? What is the short-term need, short-term goal, and then the long-term goal? And then I think that'll help people map out, but that comes back to a lot of our clients in mobility are not tied or integrated that well into talent, which we've been talking about, I think, for a decade now. So that, from the top, they need to integrate talent management and mobility so we can really have these high level conversations and these long, forward looking discussions about, what are the goals here? What's the short term goal? What's the long term goal? And map it all out. I think it's really important. And look at the cost, and the benefit. If it's going to take a long time to get the goods there, what are some other options? And why don't we talk to the transferee or the assignee or whatever? What's important to you? Be transparent with them with what the challenges are. Look, your goods right now could take 14 weeks to get there. In lieu of that, we could give you a check for this. Just think out of the box. Don't keep following the same things that we've always done. Now, the ownership of the company is probably going to be sorry, be upset with me for saying that, so I'll make sure they don't see this. But I'm not trying to throw away business here. But
yeah, he's trying to be helpful, right?
Absolutely, yeah, not self-serving. Correct.
Nice. Well, we want to thank you again, Alex, for coming on Relocation Leader, and again, congratulations on the promotion to president.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Very honored to be a part of this, and congrats on your new podcast. I know it's going to do really well. Everything you guys do goes well. So thank you so much for having me and the time.
See ya.